Good to go, mate.
Boom. Right, Marcus, mate, thank you so much for coming on. It's a real privilege, and I'm excited about all the podcasts we do, but especially this one because after watching, I got sent it by a couple of people, the Instagram story you done the other day, and I watched it again today, and it's difficult to watch, but for all the right reasons. It's really tough to watch, and now you go about it explaining, first of all, what white privilege is, but then also your own personal experience. I thought it was done really well. But selfishly, mate, as well, I've done this podcast to speak to interesting people who can hold a conversation, and you can learn by speaking to people and educate yourself. And on Twitter this weekend, the world just seems like a toxic place, mate, and you can't speak to people, and it's impossible to try and have any type of dialogue, and you can come across as all the awful things in the world. So to have this platform to talk to you, mate, I'm really excited. So again, mate, massive thank you.
Me too. Thanks for having me on. It's been, a long time coming. I remember meeting you on the train, and I knew there was something about it that, and when you look at someone, you think you've got a mind, and I'd love to get to know what it is that gets you ticking. I knew that straight away. We sat next to each other once on a train down to London.
Yeah, I remember it, man.
But been looking forward to getting involved and sharing our.
It's sad that it's come at such negative times, if you like. But one big positive, mate, which again I was like, we need to speak to him now, is because again, just on Twitter, everything's negative, everything's taken a bad way, a bad spin. And I loved how you started your Instagram story, and you say it all the way throughout. But you say it's about educating. You're like, look, if you want to know something, ask me. Let's start the dialogue. Let's start educating people. Let's start, talking about things more. And that's what I'm a big believer in. Let's just talk, and try and make things better. And let me hear your opinion. You listen to mine, and let's meet in the middle. And let's, that's the only way I think we're going to get past all of this.
I find it incredibly difficult to hear that people are uncomfortable to ask questions, because that surely is something that we teach children what to do. So I understand that your ego may be chipped away at, and you might have to walk into a room and not behave as though you're, the ruler of the empire. But at the end of the day, if you don't know, ask. Like, I'm going to try and be articulate, and I'm going to try and not use profanity. It might slip out, I can't promise. But
mate, you can swear. You can say what you want.
Swear, yeah. If you don't fucking know, ask. Yeah. You walk into a room, you can't pronounce someone's name, don't call them something that they're not going to identify. If there's somebody there and you don't know how they identify, whether they're male, female, trans, whatever it is, you don't know. It's as simple as this, and it boils down to this question. How do you identify? How do you spell that? How do I pronounce that? How would you like me to address you? There is no harm in walking to a room and disarming any tension or any uneducation by asking a question. I'm frightened to leave my house in case the police pull me over and I'm killed. I'm frightened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. These are actual things, real things that are justified, you can be scared of as a person of colour. Don't tell me you're frightened to ask a question. It's not good enough anymore. I understand it, but we've all got to do better. I need to ask. I need to open myself up to answer to more people, which is what I'm trying to do. And I need to make my allies feel that they can ask me anything. And I want everyone to feel like, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
It's that ego thing. I don't know if you've seen the Kevin Hart podcast recently with Joe Rogan, and he tells a story about he was in a room with Elon Musk, and he's like, fucking hell, there's Elon Musk, nearly the world's first trillionaire. I'm going to go and speak to him. Yeah. And his mate says, well, don't be like, don't be the first one to go and speak to him. Like, don't want to act too keen. And again, it's ego saying, don't want to be the first one. And Kevin Hart's just like, fuck this. I want to go and ask him questions, man. I want to say, how do you do what you do? And it's that ego thing, isn't it? Too scared to drop your guard and say, how do you want to be called? How do you pronounce your name? And how do you, it's totally, mate, it's an ego thing.
I don't know why, I don't know, it's got to be ego. But for me, I'm glad that this has brought a voice and a platform to opening up that situation and allowing people to ask any kind of questions. There's so many different types of privilege, and this is what I was trying to get across. Because for me, I'm speaking to white people. I was raised by white people. I'm speaking to all my friends, well, not all, but the majority of my childhood friends are white, because that was the area that I was in. That was my environment. And I'm learning that there are so many different types of privilege. And when you explain privilege, to try and explain privilege, it usually comes when people are trying to mediate over why there's been a bit of an altercation. So, it could be in the chippy and two people are arguing and they don't understand, but you can understand that, one person hasn't really got that much education about it. The other person's got an opinion on that person, but it takes somebody in the middle when everyone's drunk in a chippy to try and get the point across. Yeah. And by that point, no one's listening. It's who's won, who's winning. You'll say whatever it takes to climb to the top. By that point, no one's asked. You've lost the point of what it is. So for me, trying to explain white privilege in a way that is not hostile, trying to explain privilege in a way that if, you are cisgender, that is a privilege. If you are born, your soul and your personality is born into the body that suits who you are, that's a privilege. If you are able-bodied and you were born without the need of a wheelchair or whatever it could be, that is a privilege, because you have privileges that somebody else doesn't have for the way that they were born. They cannot help it. It's who they are. Heterosexual privilege, cisgender privilege, Christian privilege, male privilege. There are so many things that we don't realize chip away at other people. And people, use that as comparison. Well, what have I got? White privilege does not mean that you haven't had a hard life. It doesn't mean that you haven't struggled. It doesn't mean you haven't been skint. It doesn't mean you haven't had to borrow, beg, steal, whatever to protect for your family. What it means is that your skin tone isn't a contributing factor to making your life harder. That's what it means. It's as simple as that. And trying to get that across in a way that isn't scary and isn't taken away. I know a lot of people feel when you say white privilege, well, I'm not privileged. That's the initial defense mechanism. That's the initial wall that goes up. But once you slow it down and you say, okay, cool, well, I get that, but your daughter is, entitled to the same things that I'm entitled to. That it's a free world. We should all get the same. But I'm 17 times more likely to be pulled over by the police for no goddamn reason than your daughter. We need to start addressing this.
I think the privilege shout is in, like you say, it comes in all forms. I remember since being injured, I've got involved in military charities, and there's a lot of people with a lot of money down south, and they set up these charities. And I've been very lucky. I've went all around the world and visited some countries and been to places I never thought I'd do. And I meet some of these people, really nice people, but they were born into incredible wealth. And I'm being from Liverpool, where it's one of the most deprived areas in the UK, being from Bootle. Sometimes, you say something like, I was in my back garden or something, and someone's like, what, your back garden? Or like, these people have got land. Do you know what I mean? And I can see it yourself. Sometimes privilege it's not a bad thing. It's just it's just all type thing sometimes, isn't it?
I can't really talk. I went to a private school with probably I think there was 2 black lads in the whole school, so I can't really...
My brother went to private school, but he only got in. He got in because his grades were okay. He also got in because they had a racial quota that needed to be met. And that's...
Well, yeah, it's a good point, yeah.
It chips away at him, and it's, he then only understood his environment as white affluent people, so has put himself under immense pressure to try and keep up with his friends, and that's normal. I mean, to imagine the mindset of saying, okay, well, you've all got a car and you can have a decent job and you've got prospects, but you've come from an underprivileged background and started mixing with them and they're your peers. Are you, do you make that decision for yourself to put yourself at the bottom of the rung every single time? Can you imagine what that's like for 6, 7, 8 years of education? It's going to wear away at you, and that's chipped away at his mental health, and he's very poorly at the minute. But I hear you, and I understand.
What are your views on that, Marcus? Because I've heard that in kind of when you hear racial debates and stuff about whether it's schools or jobs having quotas, that they need to have so many women, so many men, so many disabilities, so many black people, so many Asian people, so many gay people. So what are the thoughts on that? Because that's kind of always on both sides used as a racist argument, or a sort of
This is something for me personally that I think is a foot in the door. I don't think it's come on in and we'll give you back your 40 acres. We'll give you back the 400 years of oppression and systemic and economic, socio-economic racism, these things that have all happened, and it's given back. I think it's a foot in the door, and it's the perfect, oh look, I've got a black mate. Oh well, I'm not racist because my cousin goes out with someone who's black and I've got no problem with him. It's that kind of thing. As long as you've got someone you can grab and say, well, look, this is my proof. Not enough. It's really not enough. However, it is a foot in the door. I seen something on the internet the other day. I posted it. Certain political things I choose to just keep for my friends and family because I don't always want to channel my energy into the dumpster fire that is Twitter and trying to argue with these backward inbred fucking lunatics, because I would rather use my energy in spreading my message of equality and love and inclusion and education more than I would like to waste my energy on that. But I did see the Deputy Prime Minister asked the question, how many black people are in the cabinet?
Oh, I saw this, yeah.
And his answer was, well, I think you'll find there's many more than I've ever been in a cabinet with before. No, love. The question is, how many are there? Oh, well, we've obviously we've got two people of colour. We've got Rishi Sunak and we've got Priti Patel. We're not talking about people of colour. How many black people are in your cabinet? And the fact that he couldn't answer that question directly, there's two tokens, and that's something that, as a person of colour, as a black person, I find really fucking annoying, because I've always been the token. I've always been the cop-out. Oh, he's all right, he's black, but he's not that black. We can say it in front of you. You're not one of them. You're not like the others. Well, I have some privilege. I know I have privilege as a person of colour because I was raised by white people. Had I had the misfortune of being raised with two black parents, my life would be 10 times harder. And I swear to God, that's the truth. And that is something that keeps me awake at night, knowing that my brothers and sisters who I stand next to at St. George's Hall, fighting for George Floyd, like protesting for him, trying to get Black Lives Matter to be a thing and a powerful movement. I know that even I'm privileged by comparison.
What you're saying, a foot in the door, and I totally get the meaning. But I think it is dangerous, though, to do that. I only use the example of what my dad used to say. My dad was a fireman for 30 years. And I remember a woman got moved to his station. And now my dad's not sexist whatsoever in any way, but my dad's argument was he didn't feel that this particular woman should have been in her job. And his reason being, again, he's not sexist, he doesn't have no bad feeling against this person, but it was because I think she was 5 foot whatever. She was really light, and he used the example, I'm a 16 stone fella, I've got an ale gut. If I'm lying in a burning building, how is she gonna? So he used the kind of the physical capabilities, and why should she get a job to fit a quota because she's a white woman over than maybe he could give the job to a 6'5" big burly white or black guy, but it's got to be a woman to fit the quota. So I totally get what you're saying about this. It's a foot in the door, but I also think it's dangerous to kind of just fill quotas with either black people or Asian people or white people or Muslims or any type of minority, just because it's a foot in the door.
I had a chat about this recently. We were talking about immigration, and I do think that no, it's not perfect. Yes, it is progress, and not everything's black and white. And a lot of the things that we are now fighting for, a lot of the reasons that the Windrush scandal happened is the things that fall between the cracks. We can't focus on the black and white anymore. We need to include the grey area. And, right now with this whole Black Lives movement, it's not just the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not just that anymore. It's everyone versus racism. We've all got to come together and just call it out. I don't care who you vote. I don't care what brand you wear. I've got, a very sensitive nose. If you didn't want to wear deodorant, I'd probably get over it. Wouldn't be asked. But if you're a dickhead, you're a dickhead, and that's the end of it. If you're a dickhead and you don't treat everyone the same, there's nothing anyone can do for you other than try and educate you. And really, it's not on them, it's on you.
That's the positive thing. And me and Tom were speaking about it. And it's me and Tom done a podcast last week, and we were speaking, weren't we, Tom, about how and that's why I'm grateful it's you, Marcus, I'm speaking to, because it does, as a white person, it does sometimes feel difficult to speak about these things. Me and Tom talking about it, you're almost a bit scared that you're going to say something that, you know, anyone who knows me knows I'm not racist. And, you know, I don't care about anyone. I know I'm not racist, but yeah, when you speak about certain things, it is quite scary as a white person, because you're thinking, you know, what were we like the other day, Tom? As soon as the podcast finished, I thought,
yeah, we did say, didn't we? Yeah, that was. It's just you're just so scared, aren't you, of touching on something that, you know, if not sensitive topics. It's just it is it genuinely is a sensitive topic, isn't it? It shouldn't be, but it is. Do you know what I mean?
I think as the majority, you have the choice whether you want to pay attention to the details or not. As a human being, we all have the choice, and we have to reprioritize what's important. And I think a lot of people have been able to turn a blind eye and say, I'm not racist, and that's all good, but it's not enough anymore. Now we need people to come forward. And I understand that it's scary. I understand that you're embarrassed, that you're probably going to make mistakes. But if it was me, I've had to adapt. You know, on the flip side of that, the yin to the yang, like, I've had to flip it over and go, okay, cool, I just have to adapt to use. And then when I go into the black community, you know, there's things I don't know, and I'm embarrassed. I'm mixed race. I have to go between both cultures. So you're scared to ask black people. I mix in your world, and I don't know what the fuck's going on. And then I mix in the black community, and I don't know what the fuck's going on. So I have to ask all the time, like, I have to ask what's jollof rice, like, what's in that? I don't know, like, my granddad's African, but he passed before I met him. I don't know the details. Can you tell me what's in this rum punch? Is this like, oh, this is my grandmother's that's my great grandmother's recipe. Like, one of my friends gave me that. I have to ask the details. How do you pronounce that? What's that head wrap called? Like, what music do you listen to? How do you know this? Okay, just ask the question. That's it. Just drop the barrier.
Well, because, like you say, I personally do think education is key, and having these open conversations is the way for a better future. Saying that, I seen a clip this morning of Morgan Freeman, and he does an interview, and he says, the interviewer says, you know, how do we stop racism? And he says, stop talking about it. He says, rather than say I'm a black man and you're a white man, we're just two men speaking, you know, stop talking about it. So there's that kind of, it's, for me personally, I sometimes feel, which way do you go about it? Do you go down the Morgan Freeman kind of way and think, listen, if we just don't talk about, you're not a black guy talking to me, or a mixed race guy, sorry, I'm not a white guy, we're just two guys from Liverpool talking. Yeah. Does that stop racism? Or do you go the other way and openly say, you know, you're mixed race from Liverpool, I'm white from Liverpool, let's talk?
Go the other way. Morgan Freeman's been pulled up numerous times for making comments that the black community have been in uproar over.
Oh, really?
He is a multi-millionaire, and he is in a position of privilege. He might have come from poverty, but he is no longer in poverty. And I personally, it's my belief that his finger is not on the pulse of the community. So for him to just say, yeah, speak man to man, that might have worked in his day, but nowadays to say I don't see colour is not good enough, because we need people. We need our allies to see colour. We need you to see that you are more privileged than I, that you have, you know, the wealth gap from systemic racism, the way, you know, education is given out, the history of systemic racism, of segregation, the fact that there were books that your ancestors were entitled to read and mine weren't. This is 400 years of boom, 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 boom. You might not have been born into a big, you know, being lucky enough to go to private school or have a holiday home or have these things, but this historic wealth that is passed down, it's not just a wealth in money, it's a wealth in knowledge and opportunity. And we need you to say, we see you, we hear you, we know that you are at a disadvantage. And that's why I'm so grateful to be given this opportunity today for you two allies, as men as well, to lift me up and to raise my voice onto the platform that you're on, because it's very, very important.
Well, that's probably leads us on a little bit to social media, which I think is dangerous, because, for example, that clip, I knew nothing about kind of what Morgan Freeman now is viewed, maybe by mixed race people or black people. But if you say like a white guy seeing that Morgan Freeman, maybe it's me wrong, just kind of thinking, well, he's a black guy, he must speak on behalf of all black people. Clearly yeah. It's someone you look at, isn't it? You think, he must be right, Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, absolutely.
If David Attenborough told me something, I'd probably believe that.
The trick of that, it's the voices, they coach you, they lull you into false sense.
Exactly.
They make you think they know what they're on about.
But that clip's gone viral. Well, I got sent it, and so you believe it. And I think with social media now, what's the scary thing is not only can tweets be construed to be negative or misread or misinterpreted, but video clips can be edited, and photos can be then. It's so scary how fake news and can be so misleading and spread wrong messages. And that's what I got kind of into arguments for over the weekend. Listen, again, it's not even a question. Obviously, racism's a massive issue. That's it's not even worth mentioning. Obviously, that's obvious. I had an issue at the weekend where woke up and there was that illegal rave going on in Warrington, I think.
Wow.
Thousands of people went through. And then you see all the protesters. You'd been seeing people on beaches the week before. And I just said, what is COVID-19 disappeared or something now? Has it? What's going on? All these social gatherings, and because it coincided with the protests and the riots, it was automatically racism's the real virus here.
Yeah.
I felt like saying I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying racism needs to be ignored, but I'm all for tackling racism. But because I didn't agree with 10,000 people all standing together when you're not allowed to bloody give your nan a hug type thing, that was what my issue was. And then you get brought into this big race storm, and it's like, fuck it, like it makes you just fucking.
You dip your toe in it, you're fucked, and that's the end of it. The minute you dip your toe in it,
and I can't just stop that. I keep having to bite and keep fucking going at it.
It's not worth your energy. Like every time you find yourself in one of them black holes of despair, switch off and go and sit with your kids. Reinvest your time. It's not fucking worth it. I've done it that many times. I've been given advice on social media by, some people high up who've given me good advice. Some people have given me shocking advice. One of the best pieces came from Gary Barlow, and he said to me, never complain and never explain. Whatever you're putting out there, try and uplift people with. If you do anything else, you're going to end up battling with people, and it's not worth your energy. Put that focus into your work and move forward. And I was like, thanks very much. Social media is a lie, and it's designed to highlight the best bits, the strongest bits, and you at your distilled self. You've got to that point of who you are, and you know what it is you want to talk about. If there's a reason social media is the way it is, because if we were all like that and we were all able to go, fucking hell, how fat are you? Look at the fucking state of your at. Like, if we were able to say these things to each other in the street, we wouldn't have a social etiquette. Nothing would work. So why is it allowed when it's digital, but it's not something that we entertain in the street? The whole point is it's not real, and you can't take social media as real. 10% of it is worth looking at it. The rest of it's not worth a wank. Honestly, it's not. Khloe Kardashian broke the internet last week because she face-tuned herself and she looked like she'd had that much surgery. She's the first person to say, yeah, I face-tuned myself. I put the version of me out there that I want people to see. It's not who I am. It's not what I look like. It's what I want to fucking look like, and that's it. So everybody pushes their own narrative and what they want going forward. With the social media and the COVID-19, I just want to touch on that because I've had to educate people this week in the 60s and 70s about it, who are saying, well, I've got family who work in the NHS, and I just think it's disgusting. I'm seeing all of these protests I don't care what it's for. You all shouldn't be out there together. And I feel like a lot of people have leaned into that, and I agree. And had it been for, people with, a general election or, I don't know, something that we could postpone, I would be on side. The fact is, there was none of this outrage, and none of these white people were speaking up when people who looked like me were being killed by the police brutality. It's easy, and as a white person, you are born with a privilege to make a decision and a choice whether you choose to engage or whether you choose to walk away. My soul doesn't have a choice whether I choose to walk away, because I know what that feels like. I've been pulled over. I've been restrained by the police. I've had horses running at me. I've protested. I've risked my life to stand in a crowd of people during the COVID-19 pandemic, to hold my hand up, to hold my sign, and to make sure that my voice added to the collective voice of the unheard black people. George Floyd sitting there crying out for his mother, a grown man, someone's father, while for 8 minutes and around 46 seconds, a police officer held his knee on his esophagus to the point where he couldn't breathe. Not only was he restrained by that police officer, there was another 3 who held him on his rib cage and his lungs so he could no longer receive oxygen, his legs so he couldn't get up, and with his arms behind him. Where was all this outrage when that was going on? Why was no one shouting about it?
People would say, Marcus, with that, people would, like, before there's that awful incident, racism was still a massive issue, though, before that happened.
I agree.
But people didn't come together in the thousands, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've seen it both sides. I've seen posts off doctors and nurses saying, I'm all for the protests. And I've seen doctors and nurses saying, what are we doing? All the hard work's gone of, shielding. So I've seen both doctors for it and for it against it. It's not, I suppose it is hypocrisy. What frustrates me in this fight against racism and the fight against educating people is I find, I don't care what colour you are, people choose of what is worth fighting for. I seen a tweet from a friend of mine, and I looked into it, and he's right. It said, not only, you talk about people of colour's history of slavery. Right now, in this day, there's over 200,000 slaves right now in Mali. And it's like, when I hear information like that, and maybe other people are just like me, they didn't know about that. But when I hear about that, I think no one was protesting that last week. I just think it's very interesting. It's worth talking about, and so we can learn. What is it about this particular incident?
It affects people. It affects people, and the fact there was something specifically about the timing of this. This slotted into a window. I don't know about anybody else, but I've been self-isolated for 83 days on my own. I live on my own. My partner is Irish and lives in Ireland. I have spent 83 nights and 83 days on my own in this house. My mental health has not been great as a result of career choice and what I've done, my upbringing. I've had a lot of things to battle, and I've done a lot of soul searching. And initially, when I heard about lockdown, I just tried to distract myself. Keep busy, keep busy, keep busy. Eventually, you've done all the jobs. I've organised boxes in the loft.
What language have you learned?
Yeah, I was going to say, have you learned Spanish yet?
Not yet. I tried the piano, doing a bit more piano. I've done loads of home stuff. Like this afternoon, I've been on my hands and knees in the front, just like hand painting. I've got a stencil for what I was going to have tiled, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to paint it.
Have you picked the flowers behind you?
They're not real. That's so, like, honestly, I've been like doing just stuff that I would never normally have time to do. I digress. The point is, this has come at a time when cultures and everybody is frustrated, everybody's petrified, and quite frankly, 90% of the people I know are feeling like all is lost. They don't know if their jobs are still there to go back to. They don't know if they're going to lose their mortgages. They don't know whether they're going to be able to keep up and maintain the way of life that we've become accustomed to.
Do you think the protests and the violence and the riots and everything, which we'll no doubt go into, do you think then that was not 100% right because of lockdown as well? You think that had an impact?
Absolutely. Lockdown has affected everything, and it's been like a pressure cooker. I do not agree with rioting. I agree with a peaceful protest, and that's why I was there. Once you riot, I listened to Martin Luther King's speech today.
I listened to that today as well.
Thing I did this morning, and he says, you will not get anywhere by giving the oppressor reason to judge you and to condemn you for doing this. You cannot do wrongful act as revenge. You need to stay in the light. It is the light and the love that is going to bring us together. We need to hold onto that. We need to keep that safe space where we are clean and we stand by it. Look, how many black lives had to be lost before we got to the point where we could even have that conversation and we got equality? You'd have to break a couple of eggs to make an omelette. I get it. There is always going to be riots when there are big mainstream public events like this. There is always going to be some bad stuff happening. Or to say, I think it's absolutely disgusting that people in Bristol have taken a slave trader statue and removed it as part of British history and thrown him into the water. Okay, cool. Well, it wasn't about the fact that, he was a slave owner. that had nothing to do with it. It's the fact that it's British history. Well, if that's the fucking case, I'm going to commission a statue outside ours of Jimmy Savile, and I'm going to parade it for everyone. No one can say nothing to me because, you know, how much charity work did he do? He was fucking fantastic. Let's bypass the fact that he was a paedophile. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not okay.
People still listen to Michael Jackson's music. People will still defend Michael Jackson and R. Kelly now because he made good music.
R. Kelly, the same. It's a lot, and they'll still listen to the music. Briefly, I just want to go back into how things are being portrayed because I saw videos and footage, and I'm embarrassed to say I had friends at a couple of raves that have been going on this weekend, and I've watched the Insta stories. I've seen what's gone on. I've looked there, and whether I wasn't there personally, but what I seen, I didn't see one person of colour there. When I was at the Liverpool St George's Hall peaceful protest, 70% of the people there were white. This is not a good or a bad. I don't have an opinion on it. This is an observation, and these are things I've noticed. Reverend Al Sharpton, when he was doing the memorial for George Floyd, said 60 years ago, he stood shoulder to shoulder with Martin Luther King, and they went to prison together. Martin III, his son, was there at the memorial, and he explained how when he stood there, a white woman said to him, "N-word, go home. What are you doing here? You'll never get what you want." 60 years later, he stands on the same spot again as he goes to pay this memorial, and he feels a tug at his jacket, and he turns around, it's a small white girl. So hesitantly, he says, "Can I help you, young lady?" And she says, "No justice, no justice, no peace, no racist police." The times are changing, and when you are seeing that there are more white people at the protests, the times have changed. No one's up for this inequality. The media we were already at the R rate for coronavirus. COVID had already reached that in the Northwest. This is for many reasons, but it is definitely not for the fact that people have begun to peacefully protest. Socially distancing, with marks on the floor outside St. George's Hall, people in PPE. This is not because of that, but the media will run with the narrative that it's black people and it's the white people who've been near them and who've risked their lives and the allies, when in reality, there are thousands of white people who've been on coastal beaches playing. I've seen people I went down for a bike ride the other day to get my exercise and seen thousands of people.
I agree, yeah. I don't care what colour you are, whether you've been on the beach, whether you've been in a rave, or whether you've been standing in tent. To me personally, it's all the same. Again, it's
just on. Sorry, mate. Can I just ask, just on the social media thing as well? I mean, I thank God that someone was recording George Floyd, because if you think how viral. Was it two people? Sorry, I have seen the New York Times did a really interesting
yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, it was really good, wasn't it? How they broke it down, and how obviously I know we curse social media so many times, but I mean, you look at the power of just that one video. You only have to think that Instagram was only around since I think 2013, maybe something like that. Twitter, I think 2008, maybe 2007. So that's only 13 years that social media's been around. So, you only have to imagine the things that probably have gone on, that police haven't been wearing body cameras. There hasn't been people with so many smartphones around. Apple only invented the smartphone in 2008, which is crazy, 12 years ago. So, I just think that social media is obviously, we could discuss this for hours, but it's got its bad points. But in this situation, I know the stuff that flowed afterwards, there was fake news, etc. But for that 2-minute clip, however long it was, 8-minute clip, I don't know, that sort of exploded it.
I think that's a really good point to make, Tom, and I think it's given scope to how much do you believe, how much of what you read do you actually believe, because quite frankly, there isn't anyone that I know that doesn't have a smartphone. My nan's casing me one, for one, and she's 92. She can't get hearing aids. I'm like, nah, you're not having one. You'll have me up the wall with it. We got her a graph phone. She's got a burner, mate. Bad. Said, stay on that, you're laughing. She can't use that, but we know where she is. In regards to social media and how things are perceived, did anybody see the white policeman who was photographed bleeding from the London protest. Did anyone
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah.
And did you see how it was reported in the media of how this is a disgrace and we've had 14 Metropolitan Police injured and it's been this, this and this. And this is all due to these riots and people shouldn't be rioting and it's an absolute disgrace. I understand. And I hear that and I would take sides with that. And I would think no police officer should have to be injured due to this. But when it comes down to the numbers of police brutality and how much injustice goes on within the police, I think it's kind of swings and roundabouts. This is the grey area again. You can't, these numbers are not all fact. Anyway, I digress. The point is, that was portrayed to the mainstream that this police officer had, he'd been injured at work. What it didn't show, which somebody in the crowd had filmed on their smartphone, was this police officer was charging at protesters who were peacefully protesting, and they were charging, trying to get the crowd back. He then hit himself because the horse flipped him out. I shouldn't laugh. Honestly, he hit himself on a traffic light, and that's what cut his head open, because the horse bucked him off because he was using the horse so aggressively against the crowd, and the horse was threatened and didn't want it. That was his own misuse of that police animal.
Are you sure that wasn't the woman that fell off the police horse?
I seen a guy with blood on his head.
I don't think
stories mixed up.
Yeah, mate. I think you have, mate. To be
fair,
fair,
it's I've done training and stuff like that in those situations, and even going to a football match when there's crowds like that, whether it's, and again, I wasn't there, I don't know, but speaking from when I've been in large crowds, it just takes one dickhead to do something, and then if you're standing as a police force, and then you see one bit of trouble, you don't know if it's one dickhead or it's many, and
yeah,
everything's such on a knife edge. So I don't think you can have a pop at the police. I don't think you can pop at all of the police anyway. Not saying they're all innocent, and I'm not saying everyone in the protest is, but I'll be honest, I slightly disagree with the sense of like it's maybe some sort of the policeman's fault or something. I think I saw the video, and again, it was all white people that I saw charging down against the police, and the police are running away, and it made me so angry because I thought, and again, if they weren't in uniform and they were standing in a pub in town, you'd stand next to them and you'd say, "Oh yeah, mate, that being served," and you'd let them past or whatever. But this group of people were charging against the police because tensions were so high that innocent people are getting hurt. These policemen, when you strip it all back, again, there's probably 99% of them are completely normal, nice guys. Obviously, there's going to be a small percentage of them that are bullies and that are racists and that are bad people, just like you get in every walk of life.
Everywhere.
I think to just what made me sad as well as someone from England is, as awful as that is, and that goes, and I don't just mean the George Floyd death, I mean police brutality in general in America. It's disgusting. It's something we always hear about. What I thought was, again, a little bit strange was the kind of venom that I saw towards the police, not in the peaceful protest, but some of the rioting that went on. I didn't quite understand how they police in America. I mean, is it Minnesota? I think they're looking at disbanding the police force and starting it again. Now, I've not been in the trouble with the police, but we seem to have a much better way of policing than they do there in the States. I didn't understand the anger and the contempt.
But they shoot first, think later.
I know.
That's how the Americans think.
I mean, we don't even have guns here, thankfully, for police. And that's another point. I just didn't understand the hatred and the anger towards police here when it's not our policing problem in the sense. I'm not saying it's not right that I'm not anything on about the death for a moment. I just mean policing in general and police brutality.
Well, so are you saying the police brutality is an American problem?
No, I'm saying it's a huge problem, but in England, it's definitely not as bad in the States. Do you not agree?
I think,
again, I've not no experience, but I've never been on the wrong end of police brutality. But
I've definitely experienced it, and I've also spent a year in America and understood what it feels like to be a person of colour in America, and it is a complete different kettle of fish. There's a lot of people over there who don't even have a number, don't have a national insurance number, they've got no health insurance. They're living their lives just trying to get through every day, making sure they can feed the families, and they're desperate. I've been thrown out of a McDonald's and refused to be served in parts of America just for the colour of my skin. Like, that was one day. Another day we had people throwing stuff at us. Like, it's insane.
But on that, Marcus, like again, what I think is just so interesting. It's awful, but it's interesting at the same time. Is how we're so linked to America. For example, if this stuff happened in Spain or France, would we be protesting? I don't know. But I don't. It's just why has this happened in America, and their way of policing, and you see so many videos, whether it's white, black people, of police just getting out the gun and shooting someone straight away. It's fucking mental.
Yeah, people running away
and they do it all the time in America. It's fucked up on the highways. They're constantly getting guns out. Yeah. I don't understand why. Why has that then come to our police now being all like everyone just thinks up? And that's the bit I thought was a bit harsh. I thought the police have got quite a bad rap over all these riots. And
the police have caused the riots. The police have added to the riots, and it's the police brutality. And
in the UK, though?
Yeah, in the UK. Yes, in the UK. Yeah, there's been many stories of people in the UK.
But no police brutality in the UK started this particular riot, though.
Not at all, but that's what was sparked the litmus paper. That was what got this going. And it wasn't just an American issue. This is a racism issue. This is an injustice issue. And this is a global issue. Coronavirus isn't just a Chinese virus. It's a global issue.
Oh, I agree.
All of us.
But what I think's fascinating is why are we not seeing riots like this in other countries? Why is it England and America almost are blocked together?
Because we are political. In my opinion, it's because we're political allies in the same way in Syria and Russia. And, if you mess with the Russians, then that's it. If you mess with Syria in the Middle East, you end up messing with... It's allies, isn't it? As soon as you mess with one, you mess with the other. But don't speak to him because he's my cousin, he's my mate, he's my brother. It's not on a bigger scale, in my opinion.
Do you think the Americans would have rioted when the Toxteth riots were going on?
What the fuck? They weren't asked. But
that's what I mean. It's just interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's a really good observation, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have even clicked onto that, Andy, but I'm made up that you've brought it to my attention because it's something that I think is really valid. And with regards to me talking about the police officer earlier that got knocked off, that was charging at the crowd and was knocked off the horse, that's just a prime example. I stand corrected for that, by the way, Tom.
That's
a prime example of how social media can misconstrue information, and it's designed to be a playground of hatred and everybody throwing their own on and twisting it. It's like somebody's writing a history book. It's going to be saturated with that information that no one's ever going to actually be able to tell what was going on.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what was right or wrong.
I've seen about 5 different pictures of the Winston Churchill memorial getting cleaned. I've seen it getting cleaned by a guy who looks like he's maybe Chinese, a black guy, a mixed race guy, a white guy, a guy in a suit, a guy in a trackie. I'll never know who's cleaned that Winston Churchill statue because they could have just put so many different spins.
It can go from anything. Do you know what, though, with all this, I want to talk to you about the NHS, if we can talk about that as well, and the Windrush. I'm second generation Windrush, and I watched that BBC drama last night, and it was really fascinating to know. It's interesting, because so many people are willing to risk their lives and to go out and fight for this, Black Lives Matter movement and put their name to it and add their voice to that. And it's people like me. I've got family who are working in the NHS right now. I've got friends who have had coronavirus and been on almost life support with the ventilation. My grandmother was a midwife. My great-grandmother was a midwife and came over from Barbados in the 1950s. My grandfather was a GP and a judge in Nigeria, Lagos. Like I've always understood what it is to contribute to the greater benefit of health and, looking out for people. But there are certain things that I struggle to get my head around. And it seems to me that there are a lot of people who are willing to risk their lives for things, and it's okay. But there are other things that if you want to put your name to it, risk your life to, it's not okay because it offends the masses. I.e., the thought of me going into the army, the navy, or anything to do with the military is impossible because I don't care who I'm representing. I will never take somebody else's life. I don't care what it is. On my soul, that's me, and I'm never, ever going to kill somebody. For myself, if somebody shot my mother, I wouldn't want to kill that person. I might feel anger towards them, but I'd never want to take a life. personally. However, if I stand in a crowd...
Just on that side, quick though, Marcus, no one joins the military to want to take someone's life.
No, 100%, but it's more acknowledged. It's more...
Yeah. One day you might have to.
We salute these people, but then people who are going to peacefully protest to have one voice as a group of people seem to be judged differently. And it's something that I'm noticing within the UK. Like, I don't see the Union Jack in the same way that my family see the Union Jack. The Union Jack to me is the Union Jack to me is two things. I shouldn't laugh about it because it's not funny, but for me, it's almost like, first of all, it's home. And that's what it should be, because I'm from here and I'm part of Great Britain and the United Kingdom, and that's home and that's me and that represents me. But I don't feel as though I'm represented when I see Brits abroad with big beer guts and they're fighting and they're all at the...
Well, I don't think and most people don't do most Scousers don't anyway.
A £2 fucking pint and a full English breakfast and you're sitting there with your gut out in Benidorm, like, boss, go and live your life. But don't fight with people and don't cause murder and don't be football hooligans and don't be an arsehole because you're representing everybody else. You know, this whole British bulldog culture and how absolutely offensive it is that anyone would even consider to question anything Winston Churchill did. Let's look back on some of the comments that Winston Churchill has made, albeit we had every intention and we will not apologise for going in and civilize, bringing the, what did he call it? There's a specific number of quotes that I've recently read where he will not apologise for going in and taking land and colonising areas that he felt needed to be civilised. The Great
somewhere it was in India.
India, it was, yeah.
India, Australia, Red Indians, which is politically incorrect as fuck, but that was a quote. And what he said about taking Australia from the black man, even though they were, that's their land. That's their land. Their whole culture and everything is from that. So I find it very, very difficult to mediate what is okay and what isn't okay. Spiritually, what's all right to sit on your soul, but,
It's just a difficult one, mate. And again, that's where maybe hypocrisy is the wrong word to use. But what I find, again, that's why I love debating with like people who can actually talk and stuff. It's like, Winston Churchill, some of the quotes I've read, he sounds like a massive bellend, let's be honest.
He's an arsehole, isn't he?
Yeah, some of the things
I love his films and I love what he's done and all that, but how he went about it, he sounds like a bit of
don't get me wrong, he won us the war in that sense, and great, but some of the things he said are damn right wrong. The other thing, though, I think to remember is if you went back in history a lot of people were dickheads. Like, if you're going to judge someone to our standard, thankfully, that's what I'm grateful for. We've come such a long way where you can't speak like that, you can't behave like that. Do you know what I mean? It's like...
The freedom of speech has helped us to educate ourselves on stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
I was talking to somebody about Luton the other day. I was trying to understand their thought pattern, because this person is somebody who I'm very close to, and this person is somebody who finds time to listen a lot to Nigel Farage, and I was really interested as to what had led them to that and why they felt that was, for them. What was it? Tell me. I'm not going to judge it.
I'm just interested about this as well.
So I was like, I want to know what it is, and we argued about Syria, and we argued about, immigration and this country and the barriers. And I said, if you were on holiday in Spain and you seen somebody coming over to you and they look like they'd escaped all kinds of dreadful manner of things and they look like they were about to drown, would you go over and help them? Or would you go, stop, I want to see your papers, what's your story, how did you get here before I help you in any way? If you're a human being with a soul, you're going to help that person, you're going to save them. Save a life. No human life is more, it can ever be compromised or even compared to paperwork or money or how you describe yourself. You are a human being of the universe, of the planet, everywhere. See it all the time with people claiming, well, Thornby Beach is our beach. Is it for? Thornby Beach is a beach on this island. It's for everyone. And if you come in here on holiday, if you come to England on holiday, Thornby Beach is just as much yours as it is mine. I don't care what fucking council tax you pay.
I love the thing where it said, people are slagging off immigrants trying to make a better life for themselves, but and trying to, keep the family safe. But people are hoarding indoors with the family and the kids against coronavirus. It's like, it's exactly the same.
Black people kicking off, but literally white people were punching each other in the face over toilet paper 2 months ago, lest we forget. Like, this shit has actually fucking happened. Well, not just white people, fucking everyone. Everyone lost the shit. Anyway, the point I was talking about was what had led him to that, and how he felt that, you know, how he'd come to the point where he thought listening to Nigel Farage was really, really important. And his version of Britain, and it's completely different. Now, I'm not clued up, and I really need to put the effort in to, my brain has really been focused on inequality and on racism, specifically the racism that's closer to home. And I find teaching that to younger people, if you can make it in Liverpool, we've got the King's Dock, we've got the Slavery Museum, we've got, you know, as attached to the Maritime, the Albert Dock. Liverpool has got names, streets named after slave owners. So there's so much history in, you can really pick up on that. It makes sense. But what me and him were trying to discuss, I want to understand what his take on Great Britain is. How does he see his Britain? Because it's very, very different to mine. And we were talking about Luton and how the community of Muslims there has outnumbered the community of, I don't know what you'd say, just, you know, generic England, what the multicultural behaviour, you know, they're now the majority as opposed to a peppered, sort of equal social, okay, well, there's a couple here, there's a couple of them, there's a couple of them. It was peppered and it's nice, you know, sprinkled and it's a bit of everyone. That now that Muslims are the majority, a lot of people are finding that's offensive. And I'm wondering, what is it about that? Because if I was a person of colour that found safety in numbers, I would potentially, and my brother was there and he was like, look, I found a place, you're not going to be racially abused, you're not going to get this, you're not going to get that, and the things you're suffering now, come and be here, I want to take care of you, I'd be safer. I could understand it. So I asked him what it was about that specifically that made him feel that, you know, they shouldn't be here, and that he needed to take a stronger stance on immigration, and that Britain should be Britain, full stop. And it was to do with certain laws. I can never pronounce it. I need to ask. I have to ask every time. I'm ADHD and like dyslexic, and I can't spell properly and I forget things all the time. But is it Sharia law? Sharia?
Sharia, yeah.
Sharia law, and how people are beheading people and taking out law in their own hands and doing whatever the fuck they feel like. And I said, okay, I understand that. That's absolutely disgusting and is not acceptable by any terms of society right now. But if we go back to the Tudors, it was happening, and the kings and the queens and the leaders of this country were putting white people's heads on spikes around about. Now, I'm not by any way, stretch of the imagination, condoning this, but the only 2 times I've ever discussed anything about beheading has been when I've heard about it happening as terrorist attacks, and in history with the Tudors. Like, I've never ever got anything else to compare it to. So it was interesting to me that he respected the Tudors and he looked back at them and thought, that's magnificent. But then, you know, when it's happening now by people with brown skin who are in his country and his Great Britain, it was completely different. So it's interesting, isn't it, how different people...
Now, it feeds into that kind of what I was arguing about people. It's like the hypocrisy of, like, you can kind of choose what you want to be offended by or what you want to fight for. It's that kind of... But yeah, here's a question for you then. I just end up asking this lad on Twitter. So are you proud to be British, or are you just... Would you...
There's parts of being British that I absolutely adore, and I'm so glad and blessed that I was born into this country, and there are certain things that I've been able to have that I maybe have taken for granted, like a boss education and being able to mix in a multicultural society to some extent. And as a mixed race gay man, being able to be in a position to, you know, have a voice and do things. I understand that I am, you know, not everyone who's in my position, but I get it. Like, but yeah, I am proud to be British, but there are parts of being British that also make me a bit embarrassed.
Yeah, of course. And are you proud to be from Liverpool?
I don't see myself as British as much as I see myself as Scouse.
Yeah, no, perfect. And I'm so glad you actually said that, because one of the arguments, again, the cesspit of Twitter, some lad said, I'm not proud to be British because of the way we've treated people in the past. And I said, yeah, that's fair enough. And I'm embarrassed when you hear things about, like you say, Tudor. It's not a great history, Tudors beheading people, never mind, you know. It's like a family member. It's like your family. No one's family is perfect. Everyone's got a fucked up family. You know, you're proud of your family, but fucking hell, I've got people in my family. I'm thinking, I don't want to say I know them. Do you know, it's like, I'm proud to be British, but of course there's parts of that I don't like. But I'm also proud to be Scouse. And this lad on Twitter said he's not proud to be British because of how we've treated people, especially slaves, but he's proud to be a Scouser. And I said, do you not realise that Liverpool was at the epicentre for slave trade?
Yeah.
I know, but Scousers are different. I was like, that's just the most hypocritical, stupid argument I've ever heard in my life. And again, one reason why Twitter's fucking full of arseholes. But that's what I wanted to kind of speak about. It's like,
he doesn't have all the information. That's all.
No, and again, it's down to education. And I just think, yeah, you know, I'm proud to be so proud to be from Liverpool, but I'm also proud to be from England. And it doesn't make me proud of everything Liverpool or England have done for that matter. But I'm still hopeful that, you know what I mean, we can change for the better. And in the present moments, we can go in the right direction. But it doesn't mean you have to be so, you know, distance yourself away from it, because in the history books of, you know, years ago, our ancestors behaved in a way we think is atrocious now.
They were all at it. Quite frankly, being British to me, when you say British to people who aren't British, they think either one of two ways, and this speaks volumes for the class divide. It's either afternoon tea and Cat Kidston and Florals and the Great British Bake Off and elderflower and all of these things, you know. It's either that and, you know, we can go into all the sightseeing, or it's Vicky Pollard, it's a pork pie, it's a sausage roll, it's a pint of beer, it's racist abuse, it's football hooliganism, and it's offensive and embarrassing. So you can go either way with it. It just depends, you know, who your audience is, and I guess that's how everybody plays life. Everybody wears different masks in different situations.
Mate, on the note as well, mate, I'm really interested on, and again, another debate I had when it sparked, and thankfully I've got a lot of educated friends that I was able to have a good discussion with, especially today, my good friend Alan. And I spoke to him all afternoon on Instagram messaging, it was great. And again, I want to put it to you, and I hope to have a similar chat. What is your views on the pulling down of the statue in Bristol, and then the kind of, you know, the Winston Churchill has caused for that to be brought down and stuff? And I'll give you my view to start off with. So my view is to keep them. And the reason being, you know, make something of them, keep them there, but give them different reasons. You know, have plaques about them, talking about the atrocities and talking about why, you know, we should never want to be like this again, and, you know, educate people. And my problem with the tearing it down, not that I like the fact that there's a slave owner who's got a statue. I don't like the fact, but I respect that it's part of history. And what I'm scared of is, okay, every black person has a problem with a slave statue. 100% acknowledge that. My friend, he's Irish, he said, I've got a problem with the Cromwell statue that's in Westminster. Cromwell slaughtered Irish, he burnt the churches, he stopped Irish people speaking their language. Does every Irish person then go and rip down the Cromwell statue? Every Scouser hates Margaret Thatcher. Do we go and pull down the Margaret Thatcher statue? If you went to people and asked what they were offended by, and they got enough people in a mob, like kind of what happened in Bristol, every statue will be getting pulled down. Lord Nelson in the middle of London, you know, he's known as being obviously a military man. I know a little bit about him. He's by all accounts one of the most inspirational military leaders that we've ever had. You know, he won countless wars. But we might not be here now if it wasn't for his leadership. But when he died, he was staunch against the abolition of slave trade. So there's cause to bring his statue down. There's probably hundreds and hundreds of statues that could potentially be pulled down by certain groups if you got enough people behind it. And my issue is then, who kind of polices that? Who picks and chooses? Did they do that much right? But they done, you know, he won a couple of wars, but he's good, but he was a little bit racist, so we let that go. Thatcher done great. You know, she won us the Falklands, but she was a bit of a cunt to Liverpool. You know, who decides that? And do we just then erase all of our history because, again, we're a little bit embarrassed about it? Or do we try and educate people and say, look, you know, I would love not put a statue, if there's a slave owner statue, make an even bigger statue of the most famous black person there and make it 10 times double the size of it. And put it next to that statue, you know, educate people and say, you know, this statue was put here hundreds of years ago because at the time, we lived in a time where slavery was wrong. Now, thankfully, we're educated. There's another statue of how far we've come. And how far we've come is that statue that's double the size, looks 10 times better, of, you know, Marcus Collins, you know, fucking singer, fucking songwriter, boom, look. Do you know what I mean?
I can
That's
see
my
already.
Oh, I know. I'm like,
that's my kind of...
you know.
And my friend completely disagreed, but it was great. We had a great back and forth about it, and he agreed. He said, no, look, I think they should all be brought down. So it was a great debate on it. What's your kind of stance on it?
You've just sparked some point in my brain. This is not something I've really given much thought to, but I had to ask myself in that moment when you mentioned those, you know, those wonderful points, how would you police that? What do I think about it? Frankly, it can't be policed. It's Twitter. If we're going to start going off every single thing that's caused murder, everyone who's ever written something bad in history on Twitter will be reprimanded. It can't be policed. And I think when it comes down to it, well, shall we or shall we not? I don't think erasing history ever benefits anybody, because if you erase it, it will happen again. I don't think it makes sense. And that speaks volumes to this, you know, cancel culture. Oh, she's cancelled, delete and block, unfollow, you know, take away credibility. Like, that's not real life. Everyone's so fucking touchy about everything. I understand how it is, but I am of the snowflake generation, I imagine. I am one of these, what's the fucking word for it? The millennials. I'm a millennial, really. And I think to myself, how the fuck is anyone going to cope with anything? Because all they do is, everyone seems to just want fast track validation, being in a job 6 months and I'm getting nowhere, I'm leaving. Well, no, you need to stick it out another fucking 4 years and see if you can push it and really make the change that you want to be in that company. This cancel culture, I'm noticing. I'm 32 and there are people in my friendship groups and my friends' children and my godchildren and the people that I'm interacting with, and I think to myself, fucking hell, like, you can't, it's not that you can't, I just wish everybody wasn't so hypersensitive to everything. And I'm a black man, I identify as a mixed race man, but to other people I'm seen as a black man, and I'm so open-minded about so many things, like, that other people find it really shocking that I'm open-minded about. With regards to the statues, and that's the fucking point in taking them down. I get it, and I understand the principle, but what's the point?
I understand it. I seen it when I looked into it, mate, and I looked at the statues. The best example I thought as well, she mentioned it to Tom before, there's a statue of a guy called Cecil Rhodes, and he made all his money from South Africa in the slave trade, and he's got a statue in Oxford University, and there's a petition to take it down. Now, this Cecil Rhodes made a lot of money, entrepreneur, made a lot of money, and he's left behind a trust fund that people can get scholarships for in his university. There's 300 million there, so people can go to Oxford University, and it's been rolled out all around the world. What better, fuck you to Cecil Rhodes, would be a poor black kid who gets to go to Oxford University that wouldn't have been able to afford to, goes there, uses his money, betters himself, gets the best education we can offer in this country, goes out into the world and spreads a message of hope and say, actually, you know what? I'm here now, and I'm here to make the world a better place. Or we can just tear a statue down and pretend he ever done it.
I think it's more of a status thing, isn't it? It's more symbolic. Okay, well, this is being up representing that, but we're going to tear it down representing this. And I get it, and I understand it, and I support the movement, and I do agree. But I don't think that putting your energy into ripping statues down to get, you know, controversial headlines and to make the majority, which have been the oppressor, historically, it's going to piss them off even more. It's punching holes in your own boat, frankly.
That was the thing. That was a tweet that made me look into kind of slavery. It's like, again, a friend, he just put people putting all this energy into tearing down statues of slave owners from 100 years ago. There's slave owners now going on. Why not put your energy into stopping it going on now, like the problem now?
You know what would have been more important to, I'm going to have to open this door because I'm roasting. Do you know what would have been more important and what I would have respected more as a black person? a person of colour, as a gay person, as somebody who values all life and understands diversity and that life isn't just black and white. I understand what that statue was and how long it stood for and what it meant. Somebody please cut the Wi-Fi off to Katie fucking Hopkins. All I ask, what the fuck is she on about? Because every time I look on there, I feel like, okay, cool, it's just being controversial. Just saying it to get followers and likes. Who the fuck's paying her a salary? She contradicts herself.
How does she actually make her money? How does she make her money? I have no idea.
She's an arsehole, Tom. She's a fucking dickhead.
That's so funny you mention it. Isn't it funny how, again, people now have chosen to be so offended by this statue, but yet we'll pop up and watch everything that Katie Hopkins says. Like, do you know what I mean?
It makes you feel. The only way to change how people think is to change how they feel, and you've got to get it while it's there. I was trying to explain racism and how I could explain it to one of my white friends today, and she's like, but I just don't get it. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's like when we go to see the medium. We're spiritual. I'm a spiritual person. I have my crystals. I believe that your energy, transcends up, and energy can't be deleted. It can't be removed. It's displaced. So for me, energy is there. I didn't know too much about it. I had to learn about it. It intrigued me. I wanted to learn more. I went to a medium who told me names, dates, and things she could not have possibly known on this fucking earth plane. And I got my validation. So the only way I can teach somebody else about it is to make them feel it. The only way I think the best way to teach racism in Liverpool is to take the kids to the docks, take them to the streets that are named after the slave traders, let them walk past these streets on nights out.
You're not one of these people that want to change the names then? You want to keep them as they are?
I don't believe that changing history is going to change the future. I believe that changing the present will change the future. There's no point in doing that. It's getting us.
Yeah.
It's the focus is it's distracting, and the focus is not on the topic. The topic is equality for all. There wasn't equality for all then, and the majority put statues up of them. That's a byproduct. It's fine. Let's focus on the real task at hand. Stopping your daughters have to face inequality, stopping my children having to face inequality, and helping us all move forward as one race, and just stopping this racial injustice.
So glad, mate, you've shared this view, mate, because I wasn't worried because I knew we'd debate it either way, whether we agreed or not. I knew we'd have a good debate regardless, but it's so, mate, so reassuring to know that there's hope that history is what it is, as embarrassing as it is for us all. It is what it is. It's in the present now to come together and make us a better future for us all. In Liverpool, yeah, we've got some streets named after slave owners, which is an embarrassing part of our city's history. We have got, mate, tons of amazing black people to come from this city. You look at John Conte, professional world champion. I wrote, mate, it took me 2 minutes to just quickly look at names. You got John Archer, he was a Scouse, ended up being Mayor of London. You got G. Walker, who set up the Anthony Walker Foundation. Howard Gale played for Liverpool. Trent Alexander-Arnold playing there now. Irene Affle, I think I spent the name right. She grew up in the riots in Toxteth, became the first black female police inspector. I mean, that took me 2 minutes to find out just 5 amazing black people that have come from our city and have went far beyond, most people will ever get to go and do. Put statues of them on the end of each street that's named after a slave. Rather than rip it down and say we can't mention that street because it was named after a slave. Let's talk about it and say, look how far we've come. It was once named after a slave, but now there's a plaque above it and a statue at the end of each street with a famous black person that's come from this city.
Mm-hmm.
People have got to acknowledge it and understand that they weren't there. Had they been there, they could have done something about it. In this day and age, there's no point trying to rewrite history. So, do you know what? Move forward, push for equality, say what you think, be honest, be brave enough to ask the questions, say it with your chest, don't apologise for who you are. Everything else will fall into place. Tom, I feel like you barely spoke this entire hour and a half.
Mate, I'm just fascinated. I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were. One thing I did want to ask you is actually on that point. The thing is with statues is when does it end? So if all the statues are gone, does it then start on buildings, and then does it start on monuments or whatever. So, where does it end? One thing I wanted to ask you though was, you've been obviously in TV a fair amount of times, obviously X Factor and the like. Have you had any experience anything along the lines of racism on TV?
Yeah, anything in the entertainment industry is as open and, well, it's obviously very covert. I call it incognito because it makes me laugh, because I know what it is, but no one will talk about it. It's the big black grey area. So here's how it goes. Any work that most people in entertainment do that's on TV, you don't get paid for. You're basically there for free, and they'll cover expenses. You're there for exposure. When you sign a record,
so is that across the board?
That's across the board, yeah. Doesn't matter who you're there for exposure.
So if I don't know, I wanted to go on tomorrow morning, I wouldn't get paid for it.
Morning, I've done it 7 times.
I had a thing, mate, right on that.
That's interesting. I never knew that.
I got asked to go on the One Show. They wanted to do a generational thing from where you were at the start of 2010 to where you are 2020. And again, you will have experienced this far more than me, Marcus, but they said to me, oh, you've got an interesting story where you were 2010 to where you are now. Do you want to come on the One Show? And I said, yeah, fine. What's the fee? He said, oh, no, we just thought you'd like to be on the One Show. I said, well, I'll go on it. Wouldn't mind being on it, but you're going to pay me for like a day's work. We don't normally do that. I said, well, then I'm not doing it. And they were so shocked that I was like, I don't fucking give a fuck. It's your show. If you want me on it, I'll go on it, but pay me. And they couldn't believe. And they ended up paying me, and then they paid me nothing anything worthwhile. But
100 quid if you're lucky.
Yeah, 150 quid it was. Yeah. They couldn't believe that I didn't just want to go on the show for exposure. They couldn't get their heads around it.
It's the ego of the people who are in power. They can't believe that somebody who's deemed to be underprivileged, or why wouldn't you want that fame that could we're a great platform and you should use us because it could build you up. Here's the tea. I did last year. I've done Christmas pantos for 8 years. I haven't been home for Christmas for a long time. I've not seen my family. I've travelled long hours to come home Christmas Eve when I've been able to do it, and I've missed the whole build up to the celebration. And quite frankly, that's the best bit, isn't it? Because Christmas Day, just sitting there eating a dinner and scratching your ass in your jar, you know what I mean? It's what it is, having a bevy and then whatever. I can't, because I'm back and work the next day. He's got 2 shows on Boxing Day religiously for 8 years. It's drove me mad. But the point I'm making is I've done pantos where I have had 78 shows, 85 shows, 3 show days, blah, 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 and I've never made over 30k. That might sound like a lot of money, and it's basically a lot of my friends' salaries. Now, I have other white friends who are on the same level playing field of platform and have done the same things that I've done. And they are getting 70, 75k, 80k, 90k for doing 3-week work. Someone I met last year did 22 shows and was paid £70,000.
Okay, no.
I did shows into the 70s. I do not know any black performer who can match the money. And because it's all so secretive, nobody ever knows about it. They're having everyone off. But what can you do? And I felt that was really important to say. So you asked me if I've experienced racism within entertainment. It's everywhere. There are jobs I can't even go for because of the colour of my skin. And the characters are painted fucking green from start to finish throughout.
Mate, you made such a good point. And again, if anyone hasn't, go onto your Instagram and go back a couple of stories, the one that you've done, your video. And not only, again, I said that at the start, you explained it really eloquently about where you were, but then you also spoke about your own personal experiences. One point which made me laugh in a sense of like, how fucked up is this, was about you saying about like mythical characters that aren't even real. It's like, it doesn't matter whether you're fucking black, white, fucking green. It's a fucking character. Why does it matter? And it's laughing about it because it's fucking ridiculous. But mate, it was hard to watch, mate. You're talking about your own personal experiences, mate, and it was fucking like
everything turns to record sales, asses on seats, promo. What are the majority going to buy, and who are the majority? I've worked in theatre since 2013, and I've travelled the world with my job, and I've never sat in a theatre that has had the majority of people be anything other than white. And the last show I did was it's called Hair the Musical, and the third song in the show is It's called Coloured Spade, and I sang it. And I had to name every single derogatory word a white person has ever said to a black person, up to the point when it was written in I think it was the 60s, when they were all high, and late 60s. And the whole thing, I had to do that and deliver that 8 times a week to 2,000 white people like that.
Wow.
I mean, I was more comfortable about standing at the end of Act 1 with my cock and balls out on show in front of everyone, because that was a thing as well. That wasn't a problem. But the fact that I had to say all these things that they'd done, not them personally, but you know what I mean? That historically, that's how you'd looked at me, and that's how I'd been treated. I had a separate entrance to come in. We couldn't share a water fountain. You know, there was so many things. I'm a product of this culture mixing together. Me, personally, that's who I am. So there's a lot of
things like this, mate, both being Scousers, how, because we've come from fuck all in that sense, you know, you don't have a lot in Liverpool in that sense, and we, like I say, we've both been lucky enough to travel around. There's this skiing charity, and mate, you go there and they're all chasing bloody, you know, MBEs, and they're all chasing like and they're all so, and it's funny, I went on a skiing trip and there was no, I'm not even saying black, there was no black people, but there's also like, there's no northerners, there's such a kind of class of certain things that you do. You go to the dinner parties, or I've went to watch a polo game down south somewhere, watch the polo game. And come to think about it, there was no black people there, there was no
I've never skied in my life. Black people barely swim. We've got bad experiences with water. We don't like boats and we don't like water. And you know why? But with skiing, fuck that. Black people also don't like to be cold.
Yeah.
Like, I've been freezing a day. I've never skied in my life.
And that's why I think, mate, it's important that people who are well-travelled and have got a bit of life experience, you know, you should be speaking and sharing your experiences and educating people, because it's not all written in a book. It's about speaking to people and learning from people's past experiences, and being able to laugh about it and think, fuck now, this is fucked up, this, you know, we need to change it. You know, it doesn't always have to be this violence and, you know, ripping stuff down and vandalising. It's sitting around going, look, we're cool now in this present moment. Let's get better together.
Talk it out. Use your mind, not your fists. You get nowhere with that. You get nowhere with it. And I'm so glad that I'm in a position that I've had a platform to use my voice. I thank you two gentlemen for raising my voice to the same volume as yours and allowing a person of colour on your platform. I know you've had people of colour on your platform before, but under these circumstances, it says a lot about you guys. So thank you for being allies. Thank you for amplifying me and allowing my voice to be heard by a bigger audience that probably wouldn't have had access. Thank you.
We do pay people for coming on this as well. Unlike this one.
I'm fair play to you, mate. As soon as a message, mate, you got right back to me, mate, and it means a lot, mate. And like I say, we shouldn't have done it under these circumstances, but I'm glad we did, mate.
Yeah, that's a late than never, isn't it? Thanks so much.
Thank you, mate.